Hello folks, welcome to my YouTube channel Watercolor Impressions. This week we're going to learn how to simplify paintings for watercolors. This reference was taken when I was going for a walk near downtown near Yorkville. Before you go, hit the subscribe button so you guys can get weekly video updates from our channel. If you want to support me some other way, hit the super thanks button so that I can make videos every week like this. And let's get started, guys. In order to simplify any painting, we have to simplify our drawing, because our drawing will tell us where everything goes in our painting, so it's kind of easier that way. So whenever I draw, I look for the perspective lines. As you could see, I'm also trying to check the angles with my pencil as well, and I look for bigger shapes first. So the bigger shape is that big shape of the house, which is in the foreground, and which connects to the midground to the background. And whenever I put a line, I try to compare that line with things around that, so that way we know like where everything sits. And this is where I'm trying to simplify my scene. And you can see in the reference there's a lot of things on thousands of windows and thousands of doors out there, but I'm going to simplify in a way that it's easier to read and we are capturing the light. So I compare it to my background. So now you could see there is a car which is on the foreground, which is on the left hand side. There are two cars, but I ignored one car and I simplified to two cars, and I also put one car on distance because that helps us to create a little bit of perspective. So I'm focusing on the left side of the car now, and this one going to be in the dark shape, so I'm not worried about this car which is on the left hand side. So I went ahead and you could see I kept the basic shapes there, but I did like add a little bit of darker tones on where the shade goes in our roof of the houses. So I started with the light wash. You can see in the reference there's things which are really complex, but you can see in our drawing we simplified in a way that we capture all the essence of the things which is from our reference. So now I finished I finished the sky with a Cobalt Blue wash. And when you start painting, try to work on layers. When you start like beginning, if you're a beginner, I would highly recommend to start from the scratch. Like start with the first wash, the second wash, and the third wash. But for the darker tones, I try to keep it till the end of it instead of putting any darkers in the beginning itself. And that will really hard for us to align the values, and that will be really hard to control the values for us. And you can see this other way we can simplify our watercolor painting is to combine each and everything in our painting. You could see I combined the old roof into one thing, and I combined that roof into the midground and the background. So I also put a little bit of darker value where the roof sits, and I'm also taking a little bit of raw amber and I'm trying to bring that all the way to the down. And for the raw amber, this other thing you have to keep in mind. Whenever you do watercolors, once you put a color in there, it tends to go vibrant. This is a problem I had when I started with watercolors. So nowadays I learned to add a little bit of white in my mix. You could either use a Chinese white or any kind of white works with watercolors, and I'll try to mix it up. Let's continue with our first wash. In the background, we also simplified into a single cube, and you can see there's a lot of billboards, a lot of details there, but we simplified into one building with one billboard, and that's about it. And now let's focus on the road. Even for the road, I'm going to simplify in a way that it's going to be a light wash. With one wash with yellow ochre and Payne's gray in it, and you can also mix a little bit of amber as well. When it comes to color mixing, there is no easy way to learn color mixing. It's just by doing it, because I watched hundreds of tutorials of color mixing, but I didn't learn that much by watching it. I learned a lot of things by doing it. And I also try to do 1% better every time when I try to do a painting. That way it compounds our painting and our skill level as well. This is where this painting is not about skill or anything. This painting is about simplifying. And you can also see in the distance there's a lot of trees and everything. I combine into one single shape, But one thing I'm doing really, checking my time is to check the values there. But there's other thing. When I see people's painting, there are some people who paint in a traditional way. If you see a traditional painter or the traditional paintings which is done like in the past, you could see that most of the paintings, they try to create a depth and distance, depth in their painting. So they try to change the values in distance so that the background goes all the way at the back instead of coming in the front. So it's up to an artist's preference. Every artist have their own way of painting. So if you think that if you want to push something in distance, you change the value, and you can simplify it by using less pigment and more water in your brush. That's it. And you can also see I also improvised my shadows in the background. You could see it. I'm also being aware of my shadow as well, how the light it's the ground and everything. I studied it and before I went and painted it. So now we are painting the plane on the mid side, the midground buildings and the foreground buildings. You can see I didn't add any detail at all. It's just a big black shape. I used Payne's gray and put a little bit of burnt amber in it, and I mixed a little bit of everything in that mix. So now I jumped on to the foreground building. For the foreground building, when I did it, I'm trying to add the shadows first, and I'm also leaving some highlights for the windows. Even for the windows, I simplified in a way that there is like maybe 4 or 8 windows in the reference, but I simplified to maybe 4 windows in our scene. So this is why the simplifying works, because at the end of the day, when you see this painting after you finished it, it will look like a reference when people see this from far, and it will read pretty good as well. But the only thing that we have to keep in mind when simplifying scene is, even though we simplify the scene, but we have to capture the light and shadows, because that makes the scene and that makes the whole beauty of Mother Nature. And you could see I'm adding some highlights, details for the windows, and I'm trying to add a little bit of dark mid values now. And for that door, I'm pretty sure that that's going to be super dark, so I'm going to add a darker value there. So this darker value is really necessary and it's required because I want that the whole foreground building to come in the front. So I added a lot of darker pigments in that foreground building. And in the reference, you could see the front portion of the foreground building. It's not in the shadow, but I left some highlights there just to create a little bit of lighting in our scene. So let's focus on the foreground car. I also simplify the car too. So you could see there's a lot of details happening in the car, but I'm trying to simplify into a single shape instead of doing everything. So I put a darker pigment and I create a pigment, left some highlights with water in it. And whenever you add a car, there's one thing you have to really be aware of is how to anchor the car on the ground. Once you get the right, it looks like a car and it will read as a car. I should have left it as it is, as white, but I didn't have that. But I did want to add some details on the car, so I went and fixed it. And even if you can see, the car is also simplified in a way that it works. And there is sometime this might happen in your painting, and so I'm using Arches paper. So Arches paper tend to go lighter than the previous value, and arches tend to take a little bit longer to dry out as well. But as it comes to the bottom of the building, I want to create a gradient, so I went darker in the painting as well. And there's another thing I usually do in my painting is adding figures. I rarely do paintings without not adding figures in my painting, because that helps the viewer to give a sense of scale, and cars, which also helped, but adding people really helps your painting as well. So this is the bit which makes this painting come alive, is the foreground shadow, because it's going to create a lot of contrast in the foreground, and it also creates light against dark. People's eye and viewers' eye tend to go to where there's a lot of contrast. So I want to make sure I'm getting this shadow as dark as I can. And you can also see I added the 2 car. I wasn't happy about it because it's not reading as a car. Even though we simplify it, we have to simplify in a way that it kind of reads as a car. So I want to make sure I do that. So I also did that as well. And you can also see there's lack of detail happening in a foreground building. I added a little bit of details here and there. And I also added bring back a lot of highlights in our scene as well. And you can see the whole painting looks simple, yet we captured the mood and the light and everything in it. And now it's your turn. Take my drawing template and reference and simplify your scene. If you ended up doing a painting, please share with me, and let's see what you can come up with. Thanks again for watching this how to simplify paintings in watercolors with me. If you have any other questions or subjects you want me to cover in watercolors, write me at watercolorimpressions@gmail.com or comment below. Before you go, hit the subscribe button so you guys can get weekly video updates from our channel. If you want to support me some other way, it's a super thanks button so that I can make videos like this every week for you guys. And good luck with your painting, folks.